When I came back from the hospital, my 1-year-old child was not at home. Some of his things and toys were gone too. I asked my mother where he was. She said, "You let your sister take him." I was very surprised. When I found out the terrible truth, I didn't scream or cry. I did this. 3 days later, they were the ones screaming, in panic. I was discharged from the clinic on a Friday morning. Dad was already waiting. His pickup truck was pulled up right to the curb, the hood creeping into the crosswalk, like always. He didn't get out, didn't wave, didn't ask how I was. He just opened the passenger door and said, "Let's go." I got in. He started the engine. The radio was broken. We drove in silence for about 10 minutes. Then, eyes still on the road, he asked, "How are you feeling?" "Fine," I said. He nodded. That was the whole conversation. The house greeted me with a kind of silence that wasn't warm or restful. It was the kind of clean that makes a place feel empty, like it had been scrubbed for a showing. Nothing out of place. Nothing personal. Mom came out of the kitchen with that face she always makes when she brings mint tea instead of an apology. "Well, you're home," she said. Like I'd just come back from the store. Like I hadn't spent the last 3 weeks stitching myself back together in a white-walled room, talking to a woman named Dr. Chang, who asked questions that made me want to cry. I nodded. Mom went on, "We did a little cleaning. Laura helped too. She's with Eli now." Eli is my son. He's 1 year and 3 months old. Soft red blonde fuzz on the back of his head, like a kitten. Sleeps face down into the pillow, wakes up with a quiet, and immediately reaches for me. He always reaches for me. I took off my coat and walked into the room. Empty. The crib was neatly made. Toys sorted into bins, some missing. "Where is he?" I asked. Mom hesitated. "With Laura. You gave permission." "Interesting." What?" She stepped closer, like she was about to show sympathy, or remind me this was all for my own good. "You signed a paper, back at the clinic. She took him to her place so you could rest properly." Of course. Turns out, while I was resting, they quietly took my child. "I thought it was just a release form for the doctor," I said. "It is," Mom shrugged. "Plus a couple of things. She's just helping. It's all temporary." In American legal language, temporary is a beautiful word. It can mean a few hours or until further court notice, depending on how it's filed. I wondered which version Laura had in mind. I went to the bathroom, shut the door, turned on the tap, looked at my reflection. Pale, hollow eyes, sunken cheeks. I looked better than when I first got checked in. So that's progress. I didn't cry, just stood there and counted to 20. Then I dried my hands and walked back out. I went to Mom. "Where's the paper I signed?" She looked at me for a second, then gestured toward the kitchen. "In the drawer. There's a folder." I went. No words, no noise. The folder was there, transparent sleeve, temporary guardianship agreement. I opened it. Child's name, Elias Rivers. Guardian, Laura Wilkins. Legal representative signature, Alice Rivers. Date, 2 weeks ago. Effective, until further notice. That was it. 3 words, and my son was no longer mine. I remembered Laura coming to the clinic with a bag of fruit and insurance paperwork. I was wrung out like an old dishcloth, just barely sleeping more than 2 hours a night. She smiled. "Just sign it, Allie. It's so I can take him to the pediatrician while you're here. You never know." You never know. There was another paper in the folder, an automatic notice from the insurance provider. Guardian of record, Laura Wilkins. It had been mailed to the old address, probably by mistake. I came back to the living room. Mom was flipping through a magazine like nothing unusual was happening. Where did she take him? To her place. In the suburbs. It's quiet there. Good schools. He's 1, and 3 months. Exactly. It's an important stage. Developmentally. He needs calm and stability. You said yourself it was hard for you. Ah, yes. I did say that. Somewhere between a panic attack and 5 nights without sleep. Sitting on the floor, breathing through my teeth so I wouldn't wake him up by sobbing. Of course I said it. And you decided it'd be better to give him away? Not give, just transfer. Temporarily. Until you're fully recovered. Lovely. I didn't say anything. Just walked to my room. It felt like a museum. Sterile, clean, like I'd never lived there. I sat down on the bed, picked up my phone, dialed her number. First ring, second, fifth. No answer. A couple minutes later, she texted, "Sorry, can't talk. Eli's sleeping. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Hugs." I wrote back, "We need to talk. Call me." Half an hour passed. Then she called. Her voice was calm, almost warm. "Hi, Allie. How are you?" "Where's my son?" I asked. Silence for a beat. "He's fine. He's with me, sleeping. We were out for a walk." "Bring him. I'm home." "I'm glad. Really, you did well. Come over. Alice, let's just keep things as they are. While you recover..." "I don't need to recover. I was discharged." "That's formal. But I'm sure you still need time to rest." "I want to see him. I'm his mother." "Of course. No one's denying that. It's just, you said yourself it was hard. I want him to feel stable. No disruptions right now. I'm not arguing. I'm just asking for a little more time." Her voice stayed soft, like someone who's already decided to say no, but is trying to make it sound polite. I gripped the phone tighter. "I asked for help, not a replacement." "This isn't a replacement. It's support, temporary." "Then give him back." "He just got used to things. He's stable. He's happy. He's adjusted." That word. Adjusted. Like he was a transplanted orchid. I closed my eyes. "You filed the paperwork. Temporary guardianship." "Yes. But only so there wouldn't be problems with the doctor. You signed it yourself." "Are you planning to return him?" Silence. Cold. Finally. "Alice, calm down, okay? What matters now is your recovery. Everything's under control." "Under yours?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just said, "I have to go. He's waking up. If you won't bring him, I'll come get him myself." Her tone shifted, like she was explaining something to a child. "Alice, I understand. I really do. You miss him. Of course you do. But you just got out of the clinic. You need to find your footing again. Eli has a good rhythm now. He sleeps through the night. He doesn't cry. He's attached to me. If you come, it'll be a shock. For him and for you. Let's not complicate things." "I'll come anyway. Tomorrow. And I'll take him." A pause. Then a different voice. Dry. Official. "Ali, I can't allow that." "Why not?" "Because I'm his legal guardian. It's a temporary form. Even so, it's valid. Until the court says otherwise, I'm not allowed to hand him over, and you're not allowed to take him." Pause. "If you show up, it'll only make things worse. Please don't. We're not enemies." I said nothing. She said nothing. Then, "I have to go. Eli's calling." She hung up. I sat there, holding the phone. Didn't scream. Didn't throw it. Just sat. The realization landed quietly. This wasn't temporary. I was just out of the picture. They'd erased me. I don't know how long I sat staring at the wall. Eventually, I picked up the phone again, opened notes, started typing, "Contact a lawyer, request all medical records. Don't yell, don't panic, don't fall apart. My son isn't missing. He's not lost. He's not dead. He's just not here, and they don't plan to give him back. I remembered the insurance notice and called the pediatric clinic we used to go to, just to see if they'd still speak to me. "Sorry," the receptionist said. "According to our system, Elias Rivers now has a different guardian on record. We can't discuss his file with you." "I'm his mother," I said. "I understand, but there's a temporary guardianship in place. You'd need to go through the office to verify your status." I hung up. That was it. If I'd come back a week later, maybe I wouldn't have even known where he was. Not because they'd hidden him, but because, on paper, he wasn't mine anymore. I suddenly needed water. I went to the kitchen. Mom was sitting there flipping through a magazine, calmly, like nothing had happened. Then she said casually, "The reading's next week." "What?" "Grandma's will. At the notary's." I nodded. I didn't care. When they've taken your child, money doesn't sound like much. Mom added, "Laura will be there too." That made me look up. "She will?" "Well, yes. Everyone's been called. She's a granddaughter too." I nodded again. But this time, it was different. You know that feeling? When something sharp clicks into place? Not hope, not emotion, a target. See Laura, look her in the eye, and ask. Not with drama, not with screaming. Just ask. "What did you do, Laura? And why?" His name was Sam. We weren't married, not even close. He disappeared the moment I said I was pregnant. He said, "Shit," then paused. "You'll be fine." And that was it. Blocked my number. No child support, no questions. Just one message. This isn't my life. I was alone. And I went to Grandma. Not to my parents. To Grandma. Because she knew how to just listen. No advice. No, "You brought this on yourself." No look that said, "Well, who's going to want you now?" Things with my parents were always polite. Not close. Not hostile. Just impersonal. I had clean clothes, scheduled meals, birthday cards, and how's school. But I couldn't imagine my mother hugging me for no reason, or my dad joking with me about anything. They weren't bad, just there. But Grandma was mine. Not the cookies and quilts kind of Grandma. She could curse like a sailor. She called things what they were, and she never coddled. When I arrived, the first thing she asked was, "You hungry?" I nodded. We ate fried potatoes with onions and didn't talk. Over tea, I told her everything. "It's scary, of course it is," she said. "But this isn't about him. It's about you. If you have the baby, you'll have someone that's yours, a soul that belongs to you for life. If you don't, you'll be alone, and the relief will only show on the outside." Then she added, "If you decide to keep it, I'll help." 2 days later, I told her I was keeping the baby. She nodded like I'd just changed a pizza order. Good choice. Labor was fine, painful, but normal. I held Eli in my arms and didn't feel enlightenment or bliss, just quiet. There he was, small, mine. Sam didn't show up, not at the hospital, not after. I wasn't surprised. I'd stopped being surprised a while ago. For the first few months we stayed in my old rental. I quit my job, lived on benefits, what savings I had, and pure stubbornness. I didn't go outside, didn't sleep. I just existed. Day by day, no one helped. My parents and Laura didn't ask a single question. Then came the news. Grandma died in her sleep. Her heart. Eli was 3 months old. I took him to the funeral. It was raining at the cemetery. Mom cried. Dad was silent. Laura held an umbrella and looked like someone who'd missed an appointment. Not a family member. We barely spoke. Until she suddenly smiled at Eli and held out her hands. "Can I?" I let her. And that was the first time I noticed how Laura looked at my son. Before that, she'd always said kids weren't her thing. She had a husband, a career, yoga, and a real estate project. A baby didn't fit the picture. But now, she smiled, held him, asked, "What can he do already? Does he sleep through the night? Are you doing it all alone?" "Yes, alone. Thanks for noticing after 3 months." She looked at Eli and said, "He's got such smart eyes, like he's looking straight into you." Then she asked, "You must be exhausted?" "Completely." That evening, at Grandma's house, Mom said, "Maybe you should come stay with us, just for a while. You look so tired." Dad added, "You could finally get some sleep. We'd help out with the little guy." "Laura, come for a couple weeks. We'll help. You can rest, get your strength back." I said I'd think about it, but the truth was, I'd already almost said yes. Eli woke up every hour. I hadn't had proper sleep in 3 months. I couldn't remember my last hot meal. I was scared to admit how hard it really was. So I agreed. 1 month. At my parents' house. 3 days later, I packed a suitcase. Texted my old boss that I wouldn't be back for at least 2 months. Told my neighbor I'd return soon. I actually believed that I'd come back. In a month. Maybe 2. After I got some sleep. After I could breathe again. My parents greeted us politely. Mom took Eli in her arms right away. "There now. You're safe." Dad nodded and took my bag. Laura showed up the next day. "I'm staying for a week," she said. "Help out. Hang out. My husband's away." That evening, after Eli fell asleep, I lay down on the bed and couldn't believe what it felt like to fall asleep without fear. A little part of me felt ashamed for being relieved. I thought I came for support. I thought I'd rest, recover, and leave. But really, I came to hand myself over, bit by bit, quietly, and I didn't even notice at first. At first things were fine. Not happy, not cozy, but fine. I ate warm meals, slept 2 hours at a time, then 3. I'd feed Eli and go back to sleep. Mom mopped the floors every day. Laura made soup no one asked for. Everyone suddenly became supportive. I was supposed to be grateful. I even tried to be. Felt ashamed, but I tried. After a couple of weeks, Laura, still living with us, only occasionally stopping by her own place, started taking Eli out. First, just stroller walks around the block, then to the park, then, "We're stopping by a friend's," just to show off the baby. "You don't mind?" I didn't mind. I was resting. But at some point, it became obvious that rest wasn't helping. I kept resting, and I still didn't feel better. Still drained. Still weak. Always sleepy. 2 months in, my milk dried up. The supply had been dropping steadily, and then it was just gone. I tried to bring it back, bought a new pump. Nothing worked. There was nothing left. Laura said, "That's normal. You're tired. You're worn out. Hormones. It happens." Then added, "I've got a bottle in the car. I'll feed him." And she did. After that, Eli started sleeping at her place more and more. I'd wake up in the morning, and he'd already be dressed, already fed, already busy. Mom made me calming tea. Chamomile, mint, nothing extra. Sometimes it tasted a little bitter. Sometimes metallic. I didn't ask. I drank. At first, it just felt like I was foggy. That's the word, foggy. I'd stare at the kettle, unsure if I'd turned it on. I forgot the PIN to my card. Words got slippery. I'd start a sentence and forget how to finish it. Getting out of bed was hard. Reading was hard too. Letters blurred. I'd lose focus halfway through a sentence. One time, I found Eli's pajamas in the freezer. I still don't know how they got there. One day, I said, "I'll take Eli to the doctor." Laura gently placed a hand on my shoulder. I already booked it. For Monday. I'll explain everything. You don't need to worry. Then she added, You actually forgot the last one. I called for you. You were sleeping. I didn't remember. Truly didn't. That's when I realized I was disappearing. Like they were gently moving me out of frame, inch by inch. No shouting, no get out, just no one called for me anymore. No one asked, no one told me anything. Time passed. Eli grew, but I played with him less, walked with him less, fed him less. Even though we technically lived in the same house, I had no strength for anything, didn't want anything at all. And Eli was home less and less. First, he slept at Laura's on weekends, then weekdays, then holidays. Sometimes he was gone for 3 to 5 days at a time. It's quiet at our place, Laura said, and my husband doesn't make noise. He has his own room. He's calm. I wasn't. But that wasn't up for discussion. When I asked, Did he eat his porridge today? How long did he nap? Mom would say, You were there. You heard. You just forgot. Or, We already talked about that. You don't remember? I didn't. I didn't remember what I said to whom or where I put anything. I was constantly searching for my stuff, only to find it in the weirdest places. Sometimes I started to believe I was going crazy. Other times, I knew I was being broken down, but didn't know how to stop it. Laura would say, You understand Eli's attached to me now, right? He sees me as someone close. My place feels safe to him. I stayed quiet because I didn't know how to argue, because I was afraid she might be right. At some point, I stopped going into his room because he wasn't there, because instead of toys and baby clothes, there were neatly folded towels, because the smell of a baby was gone. One night stands out. I was at the table slicing an apple. Laura walked in, sat across from me, smiled, and said, You didn't forget, right? We're going away tomorrow. 2 days. Where? I asked. Just the suburbs, she said, to visit his new friends. I nodded, because arguing wasn't really an option anymore. Then I asked quietly, You'll bring him back? She paused, just for a second. Of course I will, she said. You just need more time to recover. Time. That word, just. I've hated it ever since. A few days later, I cried for the first time. No reason. Eli was sleeping at Laura's. I was sitting on the bathroom floor sobbing. Mom peeked in. You okay? No, I said. She patted my shoulder. We'll talk in the morning. I'll make you tea. After that, I cried more often. At everything, thoughts, words, a random YouTube video, even sounds. A child sneezed. I felt a jab in my chest. Mom slammed a cupboard. I flinched like it was a gunshot. Then one day everything just shut down. I couldn't eat, couldn't speak. Everything hurt. All of me. Mom and Laura said I needed a clinic. Just for a bit. Just to rest. Laura said, I'll stay with Eli. Don't worry, I've got it all handled. I agreed. 3 weeks, pills on schedule, meals by the clock. No one tried to convince me I was making it up. No one told me to apologize for being tired. They just treated me. Calmly, professionally, and weirdly, it worked. My brain stopped buzzing. I slept again, not passing out, but actually sleeping. I remembered what my own voice sounded like. I could read again, not skimming, actually reading. I could eat, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. When the doctor said, We're seeing real progress, I nodded. Not because everything was fine, but because, for the first time in a long time, I knew what I wanted. I wanted to go home. I wanted my son. And I wanted to never again be quietly moved out of my own life. The next morning, I found a lawyer. Went straight to her office. Business center. Glass door. Nothing fancy. She was in her 40s, with the kind of face that doesn't say, "I'm sorry." Just, "I'm listening." I told her everything. No drama. No pauses for tears. I showed her the guardianship form, the clinic report. She looked over it all calmly, then asked, "Do you think it was a mistake?" "I think it was arranged." "Then we'll file under fraud." "I can't afford full representation," I said. "I don't have a steady job. I don't have savings." She nodded, like she'd heard that 100 times. "I work with Women Legal," she said. "They fund cases like this. You're not the first." "So, I don't have to pay?" "Not now, not later. As long as this case is active, your job is one thing only. Don't disappear, and don't give up. We'll handle the rest." She handed me the agreement. I signed, silently, with the strange feeling that, for the first time in a long while, I was doing something that was actually mine. Then I contacted the clinic, requested the full file, asked them to include everything: the medical notes, therapist assessments, lab reports. They said it would arrive the next day. That night, something happened that finally opened my eyes and put everything into place. I couldn't sleep. Got up to get water. My phone was still in my hand. I'd been searching online for stories like mine. At the kitchen door, I heard a voice. Low. Careful. My mother on the phone. I recognized the tone. It was her "we don't wake the house" voice. I stopped. "Laura, please don't panic. Everything's working. We've done it all. It's just a little longer now." Pause. Something in her voice, nervous, secretive, made me hit record. "Yes, I remember. I remember what the will says. You told me. Why are you bringing this up now, over the phone? What, can't sleep and needed to vent?" I could hear irritation creeping in. "Laura, now's really not the time to fall apart. We're doing everything right. You need me to comfort you? Fine, I will. We had no other option. You didn't. Sure, it's unfair." I didn't breathe. "I know you tried, but still. Maybe don't have that abortion at 22 and this would be different." Pause. "Yeah, she's back. Looks better, maybe. Started asking questions. Of course she's not happy. What did you expect? She's not going to court. Calm down. I'll keep giving her the herbal stuff. She'll be too foggy to act. And we've got the diagnosis now. We're covered. Go to sleep. Don't worry. Everything's under control. Eli will be yours." I went back to my room, sat on the bed, listened to the recording again, and again. I started to shake, not from fear, like from cold. I still didn't know what the will said exactly, but one thing was now clear. They wanted my son, not to help, not to support me, for the money. Eli wasn't a child to them. He was a ticket to wealth, to inheritance, to the life they wanted and couldn't build on their own. I didn't cry. For the first time, I didn't cry. The next morning, the clinic file arrived. Official letterhead, full documentation. One line stood out. Patient displays signs of chronic psycho-emotional exhaustion with possible long-term sedative exposure of unknown origin. Condition stabilized after 3 weeks of outpatient treatment. I read it twice. Sedative exposure. I thought of the tea, the bedtime blends, the drops for nerves. I'd been drinking it for nearly a year, and I used to laugh. Used to say, "Mom's mint tea fixes everything." Turns out, it didn't fix. It broke. I forwarded the clinic report and the phone recording to my lawyer. She called me herself. "You just sent me documents that change everything," she said. "We're no longer just contesting guardianship. We're filing for criminal charges, fraud, coercion, child access obstruction, inducing incompetence for the purpose of gaining legal custody and access to inheritance. Will that work? I asked. If we do everything right, yes. She explained. First, we'd file a petition to revoke temporary guardianship with the clinic report and call transcript attached. That would trigger a preliminary hearing. At the same time, she would forward the materials to the county prosecutor's office for review. This is very serious, she said, and then added, calm and clinical, like a doctor delivering a diagnosis. You need to leave that house. It's not safe for you there. Right now, they don't know you filed. And until we get confirmation that the case has been accepted, we have maybe a day, 2 at most. But for now, don't eat or drink anything there. I can't afford an apartment, I admitted. I haven't worked in over a year. I don't have the money, not even for a studio. We work with a women's legal protection fund, she said. This isn't a shelter. It's transitional housing. It's clean, private, safe. I nodded, then realized she couldn't see me. So I said, voice cracking from the weight of it, Okay, I'll go. Write down the address. You'll be reachable there, but safe. And while you're there, I'll file the petition. I wrote it down, whispered, Thank you. That evening, I left. Took a small backpack. Just the essentials, documents, phone, some clothes. Mom was in the kitchen. Dad was in the garage. I walked in and said, The doctor recommended I spend a couple days in a neutral setting. Sleep, think, observe myself. A setting? She asked, suspicious. Not a hospital, a private recovery program. She looked nervous. Where is it? Let your father drive you? I smiled. No need. I need to start doing more things on my own. I'll call a ride. She nodded, slowly, like someone who didn't fully understand but decided not to argue, and I left. No drama, no speech. Because from now on, everything that happened would happen on paper, in court, and on their faces when they found out. The center was clean, no smells, no walls soaked in old memories, no Laura, no Mom's soup, no, you're just tired. There was just me, with my phone, my papers, and my things, untouched by anyone but me. 30 minutes later, I texted my lawyer. I'm here, I'm ready. She replied, We'll file tomorrow morning. Until then, tell no one. It needs to hit hard and fast. After that, it's their turn to explain, not yours. I walked to the mirror, looked at myself. I wasn't afraid anymore, not because things were better, but because things were clear. They hadn't tried to remove me as a mother. They removed me as an obstacle, and now I was theirs. 2 days later, my lawyer sent a short message. Confirmed. Laura Wilkins filed for permanent guardianship of your son in county court. She listed your old address as current. Reason given. Contact lost. Mother unresponsive. The filing is dated 1 week ago. I read it twice. So while I was drinking tap water in a stranger's apartment and learning not to flinch at food, she was filing to take my son away. Permanently. The reading of the will was scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. 6 days earlier, I had left the house. 1 day after I left, Laura and my parents received formal notice. A criminal investigation had been opened, and a petition to revoke temporary guardianship had been filed. What followed was a flood of calls, texts, and voice messages. At first, polite ones, from my mother. Alice, we don't understand what's going on. We got some strange letters. Please don't do anything rash. Let's talk. Then Laura, are you serious? Criminal charges? Are you insane? You think you saw something, and now you're dragging us to court? I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing to say, but because now, only paperwork spoke. On the day of the reading, I arrived a little early. Eli was already there. Laura had brought him. He was sitting on the carpet in the waiting room, flipping through a thick board book. The notary's assistant had placed a few stuffed toys nearby. He looked slightly bigger than I remembered. His hair had grown out. His cheeks were fuller. I knelt beside him, quiet, barely breathing. He looked up, right in my eyes. No fear, but no recognition either. I said, "Hi." He tilted his head like something flickered, reached out, not to me, but to a toy, then looked at me again. "That's Mama," I whispered. "Do you remember me?" He frowned, felt the button on my sleeve, then my palm, and suddenly hugged me, not tight, but real, forehead to shoulder, and stillness. I held him, breathed carefully, like one word could ruin it all. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Alice?" Laura's voice, sharp. I stood up. Eli clung to me. For a moment he just held on, then looked at Laura and reached for her. I didn't want to let him go. Held him tighter, kissed his cheek, but he pulled away and started crying. I had to hand him over. He was little. I hadn't been around for a month. For him, that's a lifetime. He'd started forgetting me. I fought the urge to cry, turned away, walked into the hearing room. The reading was formal, procedural. The notary opened the envelope, checked the seal, and read aloud. "I, Edna M. Rivers, being of sound mind and memory, hereby bequeath all of my estate, including real property, bank and investment assets, to my great-grandchildren who are alive or in utero at the time of this document's official reading." Pause. Then he continued. "Any adopted children are excluded from inheritance. All assets are to be distributed equally among biological great-grandchildren. Asset management is to be carried out by their legal guardians, only until they reach the age of 18. The paper rustled. No one moved. "This decision is final, irrevocable, executed in the presence of witnesses, and subject to enforcement under the laws of this state." Signature. Date. Official seal. The notary closed the folder, looked around, and added, "As of today, the estimated total value of the estate being transferred is approximately $3,300,000. Final figures will be confirmed during processing and taxation." I listened, tried to breathe, but with every sentence, something shifted in my head. A realization, cold and sudden, like snow down the back of your shirt. Grandma had left the inheritance to Eli. I remembered going to her for advice, how she promised she'd help me if I chose to keep the baby. And now she had. She didn't just leave money. She gave Eli protection, for him and for me, and she gave Laura a chance. That's why the will was set to be read a year after her death. So Laura would have time to give birth, or at least get pregnant. Then the estate would have been split equally between our children. But Laura didn't want to have a child, or couldn't. So she and my parents came up with a plan. Remove me. Take Eli. That's where Laura's sudden love came from. That's what her concern was about. Laura had seen the will. She knew. During Eli's first 3 months, they didn't care about us at all. My parents, Laura, none of them called. None of them visited. None of them asked. Then Grandma died, and everything changed. I looked at them, my parents and my sister, people who had drugged me for money, who were ready to drive me insane. I met Laura's hateful stare. Mom sat with her head down. Dad pretended to be busy cleaning his glasses. They wanted to turn me into a vegetable, so I wouldn't contest custody, so I wouldn't fight back. So I'd believe I couldn't care for a child, and Eli would be better off with Laura. There was nothing left to say to them. Let the law speak for me. I stood, walked toward the door. "Alice, wait." It was Laura. "You think you've won?" Her voice was sharp. You destroyed this family. For what? To humiliate us in front of strangers? I said nothing. You twisted everything. Mom helped you. I helped you. You drugged me for a year. That's insane. I have medical records. You'll never prove anything. No one will believe you. We'll see. My parents came over. Mom spoke with that tragic, theatrical tone she saves for funerals. Alice. Her lips were thin, almost white. Please, we're family. We can work this out. I looked at her, calmly. You already did. Just without me. Think, Dad said. Everything we did was for Eli. No, I replied. You did it for yourselves. For the inheritance. I'll see you in court. I turned and walked out. Dad didn't follow. Mom didn't say, wait. Laura just stood there, like someone who'd been slapped in the face. Not with a hand, but with a mirror. 2 weeks after the will reading, the first hearing took place. Family court. Eli was still with Laura. That infuriated me. But for now, I waited. By the law, by the book. I showed up on time. With my attorney, with paperwork, with the medical report. The hearing was closed. The judge, a woman, focused, director. Laura spoke first. Everything I did, she said, was for the child. I wanted to help. Alice was struggling. She ended up in a clinic. I filed for temporary guardianship so I could care for him properly. We just wanted the child to be safe while she recovered. I didn't think she'd later accuse us of tricking her. We were trying to help. My lawyer stood. Filing for guardianship while the mother is undergoing psychiatric rehabilitation is not help. It's exploitation. Here's the doctor's evaluation. Alice was not capable of making legal decisions. Here's the report. Sedatives were found in her system. Source unknown. Here's a phone recording. Alice's mother, Elena Rivers, speaking with Ms. Wilkins, discussing how to maintain control of the child. Elena admits she plans to continue drugging my client so she won't go to court. A criminal case has been opened. The signature on that guardianship form, she continued, was obtained at a time when Alice could barely tell day from night, and they used that, intentionally, with motive. Financial. The judge read through the documents, for a long time. Then she looked at Laura. You claim you acted in the child's best interest, but in reality, you acted in the interest of someone else's inheritance. Laura said nothing. The court rules. Temporary guardianship revoked. Petition for permanent custody denied. Alice Rivers, parental rights restored. Child to be returned immediately. I closed my eyes, then looked at Eli. He was with Laura, but not anymore. Now, he was mine, not just by birth, by ruling, by truth. 3 months later, the criminal trial began. I was there, on the witness stand, testifying, answering questions, presenting documents, explaining everything. They listened to everyone, from the doctor to the child services specialist. They saw the report, the lab results, the audio recording, the motive, and then the sentence. Elena Rivers, found guilty of inducing a psychiatric breakdown through chemical means. Sentence, 2 years in prison, no parole during the first year. Laura Wilkins, found complicit. Sentence, 3 years probation, $75,000 fine, and a 15-year ban on any form of guardianship. I didn't smile, just held the black pen in my hand, the same one I used to sign my first petition, the most important signature of my life. Eli and I walked down the street. He held onto my finger, with his tiny hand. Are we going home now? He asked. I nodded. Yes, now, we're going home. I wasn't thinking about justice. I was thinking about how my voice was no longer small, and how no one would ever again put something in my tea to make me forget who I was. Thank you for listening to my story to the end. I told it exactly as it happened. No polish. No pretending to be stronger than I was. Sometimes strength is simply getting up and moving forward, even when everything hurts, even when it's terrifying. It matters to me what you think. Did I do the right thing? Should I have done it differently? What would you have done if it had been you? Tell me in the comments. If this story felt close to you, subscribe to the channel. And maybe, in these stories, you'll recognize your own strength too.